Rob Font versus Marlon Vera takes place this weekend in the main event of UFC Fight Night Vegas 53, Font versus Vera, and I can't wait for this bantamweight main event. Last weekend's main event, I wasn't too interested by whatsoever. It ended up being quite decent, there was a good finish, but in terms of the build-up, the anticipation, there was none. For this main event, I'm very excited. Extremely excited, and I'm going to get that feeling in my stomach as they're about to start fighting. Two top contenders in the bantamweight division. There's a lot on the line. If Marlon Vera wins, you could argue that he's earned himself a title elimination bout in the bantamweight division. If Rob Font wins, he might be next for a guy like Sean O'Malley. He puts himself right back in that position to get some big fights in the bantamweight division. Of course, he might need to win another two after this one to put himself back in that title conversation. However, this is a very, very big matchup in the bantamweight division. They haven't fought each other before. It's a fresh one, and I think this is a very good matchup for Marlon Vera, in my opinion, and he's an underdog, which I really don't understand, especially after watching Rob Font's last fight against Jose Aldo. He took a lot of damage. I mean, arguably he could have been on his way to getting finished about 3 different times within that matchup against Jose Aldo. In between those moments of nearly getting finished, Jose Aldo was losing that matchup. Of course, that's easy. You can say that for most matchups, you know what I mean? That's the reason why Jose Aldo won, was because he had those big moments. However, Rob Font was looking really good against Aldo, at least in the boxing department of that fight, as long as it lasted. So I do believe that Rob Font is going to have a lot of success in this matchup. I think he will win the first round of this matchup. I think he'll arguably win the second round of this matchup as well. I think the third round's going to be a war back and forth, but towards the end of the third round, I think we're going to start to see Marlon Vera open up some opportunities for himself, rock Rob Font around a little bit, because he's a very powerful guy in the bantamweight division that does have a knack for finishing his opponents as well. And then in round 4, I definitely do see Marlon Vera putting away Rob Font in brutal fashion, whether it be a submission or a TKO. I reckon he will semi-TKO Rob Font. Rob Font will shoot a takedown to get himself some time to recover, and that's when Marlon Vera will latch up a Darce choke. That's how I see this matchup going. I just don't really like this for Rob Font. He does have power, but in terms of what we're judging his power based on, we're judging it based on the fact that he KO'd Marlon Moraes. If everyone's power was judged on how they KO'd Marlon Moraes, and if they can KO Marlon Moraes, everyone would have crazy power, because Marlon Moraes, as we have seen, after that fight against Rob Font at least, and even sometimes before that fight as well, does not have the best chin. Might be an understatement of the year, I'll be honest, but he doesn't have the best chin in the world, so I don't think Rob Font's got a real chance of finishing Marlon Vera in this matchup. And I think if you can't finish Marlon Vera, and you're giving him 5 rounds to work against you, I think it's a real rough night for you. I think it's a really, really rough night for you. And I don't like this matchup for Rob Font. I think Marlon Vera accessing a 5-round fight, which I believe is for the first time in his career as well, I think if he can continue to get 5-rounders from this point onwards, he's going to have the best performances of his career, because I think his style is tailor-made for a 5-round contest. We see a lot of late finishes from him. We see him have a lot of decisions that maybe he loses against Song Yadong that I thought he arguably could have won, but either way, the 3rd round is always his strongest round. We've seen that against Davy Grant as well. As the fight goes on, he gets better and better. I believe in round 3, he scored a 10-8 round against Davy Grant, and Grant just couldn't keep up with his pace, and Marlon Vera ended up just beating him really, really badly in the 3rd round of that matchup. I like a 5-rounder for Marlon Vera. I like an underdog of Marlon Vera in this matchup as well. I arguably think he should be a pretty sizable favourite. Finishing potential in this matchup. Marlon Vera is going to be the one who's going to be instigating the grappling if anyone's going to. I don't see Rob Font using grappling to his advantage in this matchup. He's going to be a stand-up fighter here and try and pick apart Marlon Vera on the feet. I don't see him having a chance at finishing Marlon Vera on the feet. Gonna be honest, I really don't. I think Marlon Vera is quite unfinishable in the bantamweight division. He seems to have a ridiculous chin. He's very defensively aware. He rarely gets caught clean. He's rarely off balance for anything either. He keeps himself in a very good position to take punishment. We rarely see I don't think I've ever seen Marlon Vera, like, rocked too badly in a matchup, I'll be honest with you. Like, sure, he's taken some big shots, but he seems to keep that Terminator style going, like a Piotr Jan type guy. Maybe not as technical and pretty as a guy like Piotr Jan can be on the feet at times, but he's like a messy Piotr Jan with his offense that's a little bit scrappier as well. I think Marlon Vera's got a great chance here. I don't see Rob Font TKOing him. I don't see him submitting him. I don't see him taking him down and wearing him out on the ground or utilizing a ground game like Frankie Edgar did to Marlon Vera, and even some moments of other fights people have done to Marlon Vera as well. I believe Nohelin Hernandez was even on top of Marlon Vera early in his career throughout the first round and stuff like that, but I don't see Rob Font doing that. I see him trying to keep it standing and trying to pick apart Marlon Vera for 5 rounds, and in my opinion, that gives Marlon Vera too many opportunities. He's going to be walking forward. He's got the cardio advantage. He's got a big size advantage as well. Rob Font's going to have a little bit of reach on him, but I don't think that's going to mean anything because Marlon Vera can walk on the inside. He's got a very good chin, and I think he has the chance to TKO Rob Font, especially after the last performance of Rob Font, where we saw a little bit of a chink in the armor in terms of his durability because Aldo was rocking him all over the place. And in all honesty, Aldo wasn't rocking Marlon Moraes all over the place in their matchup. So, you know, I mean, that says a little bit about the durability of Rob Font, I do believe. There is some evidence there to suggest that maybe he's not the most durable guy in the world. We've seen Pedro Munoz, who does have heat in his hands in the bantamweight division, rock Rob Font, put him down badly in the first round, and then guillotine him immediately afterwards as well. And I think we can see a similar thing happening here. The front kick to the body, I think, is going to be a great tool for Marlon Vera. He utilizes it very well. I know he likes to mix it up upstairs as well. We saw that against Frankie Edgar. I think he has the opportunity to mix in the grappling. He has the opportunity to get a submission win. He has the opportunity to get a KO win. There's just too much in his favor. And those extra 2 rounds, I don't know if Rob Font's going to do too well in them. And also, against Cody Garbrandt, first of all, Rob Font made Cody Garbrandt look like he had a good chin. And that's not a good look for me, in my opinion. If you're making Cody Garbrandt look like he's a durable guy, how can I pick you to finish Marlon Vera? How can I pick you to have enough power in your hands to make Marlon Vera worried about pushing forwards? I think that's what Aldo had in their fight. He had a little bit more sting in his shots, and that sort of kept Marlon Vera honest to where he couldn't just walk down Aldo. Even though that fight against Aldo with Marlon Vera was a very, very close fight. Sure, he lost the 3rd round because Aldo got a hold of his back and kept that position throughout the fight, in the 3rd round at least. But in the first 2 rounds, I believe I gave it to Aldo in the first, barely, by a couple of shots, and then maybe Marlon Vera can get the second, maybe Aldo can get the second. It was one of those ones where it can go either way. I mean, it was a very close fight between the pair of them, and that's aged very well for Marlon Vera too. I just think he's going to be able to do this for 5 rounds, keep the pressure on, and eventually Rob Font will slow down. We saw even again against Cody Garbrandt before I mentioned the durability. I wanted to also mention the fact that Cody Garbrandt even had a sort of a rallying moment in the 5th round. I believe one judge, stupidly by the way, gave the 5th round to Cody Garbrandt. I don't think he should have done that, but either way, it was the better round for Cody Garbrandt in that fight. He started to come back in the 5th. Font got a little bit sloppy in certain ways. Garbrandt was able to land some really good shots on him in that round as well. I just truly think that Marlon Vera's got a great matchup for him here. I'm actually shocked at the odds. I'm shocked at the odds. I think this is a case of the odds makers just seeing the rankings of opponents and judging the fight based on that. I don't know why they're doing that, but yeah, I think 5-rounder massively benefits Marlon Vera, and I think eventually, if I want to describe the fight, he's going to be getting picked apart in the 1st round by Rob Font, landing his own good shots like some calf kicks, some leg kicks, some teeps to the body, some front kicks as well, trying to push Rob Font up against the cage, knee him to the thigh, knee him to the body, but Rob Font, while it's at distance, is going to be landing 1-2s, straight jabs, some body shots, some looping uppercuts maybe as well, and I think he's going to win the 1st round pretty comfortably for himself. Rob Font, that is 10-9 Rob Font. Round 2, I think it's going to be a competitive round, but Rob Font's going to edge it out with more damage. Marlon Vera might fail a couple of takedowns, he might get a takedown, but Font works his way back up to his feet, separates and still while it's at range. Rob Font's going to have a lot of success, even if Marlon Vera is having a little bit more success than he was in the 1st round. 10-9 Rob Font in round 2. Round 3 is going to get real scrappy. Vera is going to have a pretty good time towards the end of round 2, but in round 3, I think Marlon Vera is going to have a lot of time. A lot of good time. a lot of good time against Rob Font. I really think he's going to start mixing in the takedowns. Font's going to try his Kimura sweeps, and he'll probably get back up to his feet, but Vera's probably going to beat him up a little bit on the ground, and as he gets back up, Vera will land an elbow and a knee to the body, and now it's a little bit more even on the feet because Font's worried about the takedown. He's starting to get a little bit slower. His shots are a little bit less crisp. Vera's having more success on the feet. He maybe hurts Rob Font to the body towards the end of the third round, and then round 4 comes around, and I think it's going to be one-way traffic from Marlon Vera. A first good minute from Rob Font, still landing some crisp shots after a little bit of a break in the corner. And then Marlon Vera starts to march him down, beat him up, hurt him to the body against the cage with some knees, beat him up even more, shoot a takedown, beat him up. Font gets back up to his feet. He's covering up against the cage. Vera's landing really good body shots on him and stuff like that. Font's landing back big shots, but Vera's ignoring them. Big knee to the body again. Font shoots a takedown, sloppy. Vera sprawls, latches up a dash choke, rolls Rob Font over, and gets a submission win in round 4. And for the winner of this one, kind of a tough position to be in, to be honest with you. If Marlon Vera wins, it's almost worse for the bantamweight division because you kind of have to justify giving him a title elimination bout in a way. And Merab's there, and Sandhagen's there, and we still haven't got Aljo versus Dillashaw going yet. Yan is an option. I would love to see Piotr Yan versus Marlon Vera. 5-round main event of a fight night. That sounds good to me. That maybe could be the matchup that they go with. It's almost better for the bantamweight division if Rob Font wins, because then you could just immediately make Sean O'Malley versus Rob Font. Sean O'Malley, Pedro Munoz, I believe, have verbally agreed to fight, and that's kind of what they're working on right now in July, International Fight Week. But either way, the winner of this one's on to bigger and better things in the bantamweight division. The loser, if it's Rob Font, you could argue that his career is done because I believe he's 33 years of age. 34? He might be a bit older than that. Like, he's not a young guy. Even Calvin Kattar, he seems like the new guy on the block almost, before the Holloway fight at least. But I think he's like 32, 33 as well. Like, these New England cartel guys, they took a long time to get into the UFC. And a long time even within the UFC to get things going as well. And their age is trickling up there. And bantamweight is somewhat of a young man's division by, if you remove the idea of Aldo and Dillashaw, I guess. But in terms of like prospects that are on the rise, they're all pretty young. You know what I mean? So maybe the winner of this one can take on Merab. That's probably quite likely, but I don't know. I think it's going to be the winner of this one versus Yan, I reckon. That's probably the likely scenario. If Font wins, Yan will love that matchup for himself, and I think he'll jump at the opportunity to take it as well, and just beat Rob Font in a 5-round main event. If Marlon Vera wins, I want to see Yan versus Marlon Vera for 5 rounds, because that's a guaranteed war, and an absolute chaotic brawl of a fight. Like, I just really want to see that matchup. I think Marlon Vera gets it done. Submission is what you should go for, in my opinion. Maybe he'll go for a TKO, but I think if the submission presents itself, he'll go for that as well. Yeah, Marlon Vera gets this one done. Like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Click that button up there. Toodle pip. I'll see you later. Goodbye.